Hello everybody, welcome to another video. My name is Infiniti, and of course I'm the face, the voice, and the hands behind everything here under Infiniti Crafting Co. and behind the website InfinityCraftingCompany.com. It is good to be back after this last year and I think technically now 5 months, so a year and a half. Lots been going on and a lot of like figuring out and character development and stuff like that, so I guess let's just dive into it. I want to say first of all, thank you so much for tuning into this video wherever you're watching it from, whether you're watching this over on the YouTube channel or the Rumble channel, or if you're watching one of the cut up clips on my various social media. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to see you. Let's dive in. So I think the last time we left off, it was like a few weeks before graduation, and oh my god, like the last month before I walked across that stage was hectic and chaotic. Actually technically the like month and a half or so, but I did it. I got my bachelor's degree, and that was really cool last year. My grandmother had been going through like some little health scares here and there, and actually went in for a neck surgery. Was it like the end of April or something like that? And everything was kind of thrown in disarray during that time. And I was stressed out, of course, with like the final projects and things like that with school, and seeing to her health. And also during that time, I went off and got my driver's license, which was kind of funny. I had to kind of conspire with one of my cousins to take me out to go take my test. But anyway, I went and got my driver's license, so that's been fun, being able to be mobile and just go do, and whether it's something super important or just to be able to go run little errands here and there, it's really, really nice. So I'm glad. It was kind of like a graduation gift to myself, I suppose. But anyway, going through all that, at the time, my head was just not in my body at the time. But between there and my grandmother coming out the rehab place a couple months later, you know, I was kind of confined to caretaking for, I want to say 5 or so months. I didn't really even leave the house for about 5 months, unless it was like 5 or 10 minutes away or something like that, because she was just in such a way. But she's doing much better now, thank God. So there was that. But also during all of that chaos, I ended up getting off into life insurance, which was interesting. And I suppose there was some foreshadowing there. I might have mentioned it in the past episode or two, how my insurance guy kind of was like, hey, you know, it seems like you would, you know, be good at this kind of thing. So I obviously didn't end it. Well, maybe it's not that obvious. But anyway, I didn't end up going with him through his agency, but a different agency. And that is where the character development kicked in. Oh my gosh. It's been a learning curve. A fun learning curve. And it's kind of interesting just getting to know, or like not know, but like getting to meet different people and actually sitting down and being able to help people find the things that they need to protect themselves and their assets and their families and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And I also thought that, you know, it was kind of fitting because it just plays into what I'm kind of good at, which is helping other people with whatever their goals tend to be. So that's been a journey. I'm still doing it. I have licenses in like 3 different states so far, and you know, getting to know my fellow man in different regions of the country is interesting, because like the Southerners are super nice, the Northerners are interesting, and then the Midwest, well, I'm used to Midwest, so you know, fun times. But anywho, yeah, I do that full time now, so that takes a lot of my energy most of the time, honestly. And so while I was learning and figuring things out with that, I took the time off that I needed to breathe and kind of grow. And then, you know, little like family stuff bubbled up between trying to learn this new trade and figure out what I was going to do like future wise. And so now that things are not so absolutely insane for me and things are kind of mellowed out, I am glad to be back. And it's my goal here to put out these videos, I wanted to come back earlier in the year. And as soon as I sat down and, you know, kind of planned it out, Joanne closed down. And I was like, well, this would be a heck of a time to come back and talk about it. But still, like I said, it's been an entire circus. The monkeys were my own, and I did not want them during that time. So it took me a little bit longer. I was initially going to come back in January at the top of the year. But I'm like, you know, everything has its season, and so that just obviously wasn't my season to come back and do videos and things like that. And really, in retrospect, I think that I wasn't in the right place, probably mentally, emotionally, or spiritually at that point, you know, because with everything going on, it was kind of a weighty ordeal, you know. And not to say that there weren't good things happening in the background, but at the same time, I didn't have the spare positive energy to put into podcasting or really anything craft related. My crafting has slowed down exponentially. Like, I've been working on a couple of different sweater, cardigan, well, okay, one's a cardigan, one's a sweater. And I've also been working on a video for the Floor Snud, which has taken me months. It has taken me months. A lot of stopping in between there, like I said, because I am so kind of inundated, or have been inundated up to this point. That's been kind of on the stops. But I did update that pattern, and so since I'm talking about it, I updated the pattern. So if I can find a picture of the old pattern and pop it up on the screen, you can see it's a lot different, a lot more spacious, I think. So that's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot more holes in the original version than there are in this one. And even though I like the old one, I like this one a little bit better. So it's still inspired by my great-grandmother's hydrangeas. It's just, it feels more like a hydrangea to me now because there's like more petals or more rounds into it. So anyway, I am working on the pattern for that, the pattern video, because I've finalized the pattern. I just have to get the freaking video out there, which is what takes me so long with most things. But I'm working on it in red, and I've stopped off on round 3 and I put it down, and I'm just proud of myself for marking it on the page where I stopped off this time. So that was a nice quick little, or not quick, relatively quick project that I was able to pick up and kind of work on over the summer, I think, or like spring into summer, because I think I was going for a May release of this year on this, but again, got kicked to the back burner. So yeah, that's a thing that I'll be working on, I want to say this month. Currently, I am working on a sweater, and if you follow me on Instagram, or if you're following me on Twitter, you will have seen little like Easter egg drops of this sweater. But also, if you're like on my newsletter, I posted a blog about it. Like, it was my most anticipated project to start this year. Don't knock that over. It's my most anticipated project of the year because, okay, the lore behind this project is that I have a friend, and she has this sweater that I have loved very high key for years. And I remember stopping her in the hallway one day, and I was like, look, lady, I'm gonna knit this sweater, so don't be surprised if you see me walking around with your sweater. And she laughed it off. She's like, feel free to do it. I'm like, yeah, I am. And so it took me a couple years to get around to it. Obviously during that time I was working on other things for the Pattern Club and getting the like initial releases for the Pattern Club out there and rolling, and then other life stuff kicked in, and it kept getting put on the back burner, on the back list. But anyway, part of what's taken me so long to record this episode is that I was trying to finish this thing before I recorded Channel Chat 150, and that has not happened. I am 2.5 rows away from being done. I'm working on the hem, which is the last part of this sweater. If you know me or my patterns, you know that I like to do my sweaters in panels. And this particular pattern was worked in multiple panels. I think there was like, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 6 panels, and then there's cuffs and collar and hem. So yeah, it was fun because it mashed up a bunch of different techniques that I had never previously tried, okay, to combine at one time. And I found fun. Wait, yeah, no, I found joy, there we go, in the challenge, or like the anticipation of whether or not this pattern was going to work out or not. So it's like asymmetrical, there's stripes, there's entrelac knitting going on. It's also high-low. So there's a lot, but everything was knit flat, and then except for like, you know, the add-ons like cuff, collar, and hem, everything was knit flat and then seamed together, and actually that worked out a lot better than I expected it to. And so, me being me, you know, I tend to go for some very I will call them extroverted designs, even though I'm not a very extroverted person. And so, anyway, my friend's sweater is simply asymmetrical. It's a little high-low. It's kind of cropped. And yeah, it's striped. But it's all stockinette, right? And obviously in a smaller gauge. I can't really describe it. So I'm going to like figure out how it's in here. Make sure I don't lose my stitch marker out of here. But this is my pride and joy of the year. And this isn't even my longest going whip. I think I started this a couple days after I did that initial blog post back in April-ish. Or was it March? Something like that. This is a hot mess. Wait a minute. But I have been just over the moon about this sweater. This is, I think I'm showing you guys the back of it, but you get the gist, right? You get the gist. This is so great when it's on. And initially I was going to release it today. But I don't think that's going to happen. Thankfully, I had the foresight this time to take a copious amount of pictures while I was knitting this. So when I do format this, I can actually have the PDF together. I don't know if I'm actually going to go back and do a video for this sweater. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot as I tried to kind of navigate coming back, is like, how do I want to do my patterns going forward as I, you know, continue to release them, because that was something that I wanted to continue to do. But obviously at the time last year I was really overwhelmed about it, and I find that I tend to put more pressure on myself than anyone else does. But because I do like to run a tight ship, a lot of times I will overwhelm myself, and then I get into a rut, and then everything falls apart, at least in my mind. And so to avoid that, I'm going to still be releasing my designs and patterns, and I still have the strong intention of going through my designs that I have, you know, I still have on the list of designs to, what am I trying to say, to update them, to put videos to them, because a lot of them are, in my opinion, my biased opinion, are really nice, and I would like to have that added element of video tutorials with that for the paid patterns and for the pattern club. So I'm going to keep doing that, but I'm going to be very intentional and methodical about doing that, so I don't give myself a case of the burnouts again. Because the thing is, I love what I do. I love to knit, I love to crochet, I love everything artsy, and I want to still be able to enjoy that. And so I think that a good way to do that is to just slow it down. You know, just slow it down. There's nobody standing over my shoulder. That's kind of part of the reason why I started my businesses, was the fact that, you know, I'm kind of the queen of my own castle, so to speak, and I can control how things are paced, and, you know, when my deadlines are due and things like that. And so I just need to kind of go back to that And so that's another thing that I'm very grateful for, and so it's probably gonna kind of mash together. But anyway, another thing that I'm really grateful for is the insurance business that I got into, because I'm around other professionals that are also entrepreneurial, and so like I get a lot of advice, or like I pick up a lot of nuggets from just sitting in these meetings and things like that. And I say it was it June, July-ish? I was kind of mulling it over in June or July, because that was about the lowest point this year. You know, what do I want? What do I want to do? And obviously it was a lot of praying, a lot of like cry sessions, but involved in that. But the main part of that was like, okay, Infiniti, what do you want to do? What do you want out of this life? Like, what do you want to make of your circumstances? And I guess the first thing that rattled back to me in my head was like, okay, I want to, for like at the very basis of it, I want to make something out of my circumstances. I don't want my circumstances to make me, if that makes sense. And so I was actually at a point where I went and was interviewing for jobs, and I got to meet this really nice lady. This wasn't my first time meeting her, but I went and interviewed at a yarn shop, and it was a great interview. I didn't get the job, but there's merit to this. During the interview, she asked me, she's like, long term, what do you want to do? And I've been asked that over time, and you know, over like the last decade or so, and each time I had an answer for that. But when this woman asked me that this time, it was the first time that it actually kind of hit me like a rock, you know. And I told her, I'm like, you know, long term, I would love to run my own thing. I would love to, you know, continue to design and, you know, help, what am I trying to say? Continue to edify my community and things like that with my crafts, with my artistry. And she also asked me, like, how does that tie into my other, obviously, career choices that are going on at the moment? And I'm like, well, you know, darn it, I lost my thought. There it is. Okay. I was like, you know, and this was true. I had been thinking about that during the time that I was interviewing for these jobs. And I'm like, you know, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and to be honest, I came to a point last year, you know, during the whole thing with my grandmother, where I felt kind of like locked in. I'm like, okay, you've done all these cool things, you've graduated, but now you have to like switch modes, okay? And when I switched modes, I kind of put myself into a box, you know, and it wasn't necessarily a box that was like outside of the realm of what makes me me, but it wasn't very, how do I want to put that? It wasn't fulfilling. I think that's probably as close as I'm going to get here. And what I mean by that is, my other business, love it. I love getting to meet people. I love getting to help them. I love, you know, actually, you know, I love the thanks of it, right? It speaks to me intrinsically. And it also involves the nerd side of my brain, which likes to geek out over numbers and crunch numbers, which is kind of part of why I like to design patterns, because I love crunching numbers. Anyway, I get to do all that fun stuff for people for a living. Cool. But it came to a point where that's all I was doing, and all I was looking at was like numbers, and I didn't really have any other modes to, like, I don't know, let off my creativity in a way. I don't know how this is sounding to you guys, but there was just that. And so, like, I would try to pick up little things and try to, like, go back to knitting, which I will show you guys this thing that I finally cast off. Was that earlier this year? Finally cast off on it about 8 days, a year and 8 days after I started it, something like that. But anyway, I was still trying to design, I was still trying to like do, but I really think that back in June-ish, July-ish of this year, I had a real renaissance moment that was starting to bubble up there. And in that, I was like, okay, I don't have to be in the nerd box all the time, and I also don't have to be in the like artsy box all the time, even though I would probably prefer that. But my brain cells were like, why can't you do both? And the revelation of that, it's not very grand, I understand that, but it was very grand to me in that moment. And it just kind of flipped everything on its head up here. And suddenly all the meetings and seminars about mindset kicked in and started making sense. And so like one of the big things when I first got into this other business was like, you know, doing 1% better every day. And at the time I was like gung-ho, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about it, and I'm like, yeah, sure, that makes obvious sense. But just like when you study scripture, when you read or like when you hear something on a surface level, it makes complete sense, and that's cool. But later on, life has a way of bringing it back around where it makes sense in here. And so I think that's what I was going through a few months ago, and it just kind of kick-started things. I was very giddy, I was very excited about my designs at that point and the prospect of kicking off my channel, and I started making all these plans and things like that. And so all that to say basically is that, you know, everything has its season, and perhaps me being burnt out, perhaps perhaps the need for a break had been there for a minute, but I have a tendency to keep trying to like push things until the like bitter end. I don't know, but perhaps that season of burnout and whatnot was what I needed so that I could sit back and reflect and, I don't know, get my ducks in a row, so to speak. And I'm grateful for the expanse of time and the amount of reflection that I had during this last year and a half, or year and a couple months really, before I decided to come back. Because again, character building moments, really kind of redeveloping my mindset, or like boosting other parts that are maybe kind of okay, just all around being edified and built back up. And so now that I am here and I have this semi-new perspective, I actually look forward to getting up and coming over here, because like I put out a blog post about it briefly, like was it a couple days before I put out the reels and stuff. But anyway, I was talking about it, and I was like, there was a stretch of time like between graduation and probably last September where coming over here and like sitting in this space was not great for me, and I couldn't really explain it. There's nothing like wrong obviously with my space, but I just didn't want to be in it, so I was not. And yeah, I think that was part of like being able to let go of things and being able to revamp and just come back around to be the better version of me. And so I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful that, over the months that I have been gone, I have gotten so many comments and compliments and things like that, and most of them were thank yous, and some of them were kind of insightful. I know I mentioned the one that started off with like, I hope you're still living your dreams. And again, I realized a couple months ago that, I'm actually not. And that I am capable of doing this, of reaching my goals and things like that. And that I am capable of working towards them again. But I really did just need the time to, I don't know, deal with Infiniti. Because, you know, up until that point, I was always like, okay, what does this person need? What does that person need? Obviously, with my grandmother, I was like 24/7, what does she need? And in my mind, I never need much. So it's kind of like, I think about like moms. I don't know why my voice broke. It's kind of like moms, how like they'll cater to everybody but themselves. And so I find that I have that tendency to do that, and I have to be mindful of that sometimes. It's not a bad thing to want to cater to people and like see them well, but you also have to take care of yourself physically and mentally and spiritually as well, in order to be a better version of yourself, in order to actually be a help to those people and not, I don't know, be miserable. So yeah, that's a lot of what has been going on over the last year and a half, and I think I'm a better human being for it. So that being said, I want to show you guys this last project. Like I said, the crafting has been slow, and you know, partially because I kind of wanted to take a step back. I know a couple years ago I did a blog about a slow knitting journey, and it's when I was working on the Genesis top, which is another one of my knitted patterns. It's a very simple stockinette pattern, but this was not. Anyway, I started this particular project last year in April. It was April 14th of 2024, and I remember that specifically because the next day my grandmother went to the hospital. So I was, yeah. So a little mortified by that, but you know, this project has seen a many tear, a many stressed out period, a many things. And anyway, it is using this yarn that I got from Hobie, I want to say in 2021. This yarn is discontinued, and when they were discontinuing it, I was like, okay, I need to get as much of it as I can afford at that time. And so I got 6 cakes of it. I want to say 6. There might have been 8 down there. I really don't know. I think it was 6 though. And it's this one. It's called Washington, D.C. And it's the nation's twirl nation, something like that. Anyway, they had different countries' flag colors in cakes, and I loved the idea of that. And so I bought these not knowing what I was going to do with them. Story of my life. But I started knitting on this entrelac pattern, and I started it from the red. Yeah, I started it from the red because I am a center pull girl. I don't like doing the outside string. And so this came out to be wider than I expected it to. Part of that is because it was on the needles for so long, and so it stretched. It was not initially this wide, but it be what it be. So it's gonna be kind of a kimono style cardigan, but I love this. I love it a lot. And so after I finished this took me 2 cakes. This took me 2 cakes. And so after I did that, I was like, okay, how do I want to continue to progress this patriotic cardigan thing? And I got the bright idea to start kind of not pooling it, but kind of like how I did the Genesis top. For the sleeves on that top, I deconstructed a cake of yarn to get the independent color stripes to make it look like a gradient going down. If I find a picture of the thing, I will pop it up on the screen, but those who know. So anyway, I took my sweet dear old time, and I like chopped up several cakes of this yarn so that I could have the front panels of it to match the back panels of it. And so after I finished this second front panel, I was basically screaming hallelujah, and I pinned it very delicately to my mannequin, and it sat there for a couple months. And I picked up the sweater that I showed, the first sweater that I showed you guys, because I was tired of looking at red, white, and blue after working on this project for, like I said, a year and probably 8 days. I was tired. So, and I think that's partially why I like put down the floor snid, because I picked up the red because I'm like, oh, it will look really pretty in red. And then, yeah, so I was outdone. I was outdone by myself and my own ambition. I thought last year when I started this project so ambitiously that I'd be done with it by July 4th of last year. And then after I finished the first panel, front panel, this year, earlier, like probably January, February this year, I so ambitiously thought I would be done with this by July 4th this year. And well, you know, as the holiday came and went, I realized that, you know what, screw it. Next year we turn 250, so I will have this done by next 4th of July. This is actually a freebie pattern that I will be putting out on my blog. I took the time earlier on to find a substitute for said discontinued yarn that I used, because again, story of my life. The green in this sweater that I showed you guys is also discontinued. It's the Bernat Forever Fleece Finer, and that basically flew off the shelf 2 months after I bought it a few years ago. I think it was 2022 or 2020. You know, it's 2022. So I was like, well, darn. And initially with that Forever Fleece Finer, I was going to make an entire like just garter stitch sweater vest thing for around the house, like a house coat. There we go. I was going to make that for myself and vibe with it. And I never got around to that, obviously. I had 5 skeins of it. And after it discontinued, I was like, well, I gotta find a replacement for it, because if I put this pattern out, I want people to be able to easily find a yarn to make this with. And so anyway, one thing led to another, and now it's part of this design that I'm currently working on. And the pattern, like I said, for that is nearly finalized. I just need to put it in a PDF and put the pictures with it, and I'll throw it in the shop this month probably. But yeah, so writing this pattern, I have had to kind of, you know, go through and try to continue to like find replacement yarns for things, because for yarns like that, obviously now the options are either Hobby Lobby or Michaels, and neither chain has had a good replacement for this Bernat yarn that I'm using. I'm also using Loops and Threads yarn with this, along with Lion Brand Basic Stitch. So there's really only one problem yarn in this project. And so anyway, I think, yeah, I did. I know I did. I found a replacement for it, which is the Premier. It's a chenille. It comes in a cone, but it's like a thinner chenille. So basically, you know, even though that one's like kind of a fuzzy, like stranded kind of yarn, basically you can switch it out with a skinny chenille or like just a 5-weight chenille yarn, and you should be fine with that. But anywho, I forgot where I was going with that. It has been a very long time since I've obviously sat in front of a camera and started yapping, and I have talking points, but I don't script things. But that just makes the episodes more fun and whimsical to edit later. I think, yeah, no, I was going to mention that I was at Michael's today, like the day I'm recording this. I was at Michael's today, and the closest yarn you're going to find for that particular sweater, if you're wanting to have different color options, is going to be the Petite Pearl yarn that Michaels has just put out, or the Posh Pearl. But I think the Petite Pearl might pair better with the geez, what is the name of that? The Skinny Chenille. There we go. Because the Skinny Chenille is actually a baby yarn, and I'm thinking in my heart of hearts that when I bought that yarn, I bought it specifically for this sweater design, the Skinny Chenille. So anyway, that panned out. And so anyway, be on the lookout for that pattern, or at least the material list. I'm going to finish this sweater probably after I finish this video. So yeah, look out for it. Sign up for notifications on my website for that. You can do that by signing up for the email list. I don't really put out a newsletter anymore. I just kind of leave the blog, leave it for blog notifications. So if you want to know when my blogs go live, you can sign up for that. And yeah. So yeah, that is basically everything that's going on at the moment. I'm looking forward to coming back and doing these episodes, and hopefully the goal is, right, sometimes I have these, not really hot takes, but I do have these like opinion pieces that I could write out, but more than likely it'll be more fun to talk about them. So that's kind of what these episodes will center around. But if you guys have questions or remarks that you want to leave in the comment sections, I do always read my comments. So I see them when they pop up on my phone, guys. I see them. But if you guys want to leave comments for me to like bring up in each episode, I think that would be a really fun thing to do, and that'll kind of carry on some of the other episodes. I don't know if I'll do them at the beginning or the end. It just really depends on the subjects that you guys are interested in. Otherwise, you guys can find me on all of the usual haunts. I am still on Instagram. I'm still on Facebook. I do have a Twitter. I actually have a TikTok now. I haven't uploaded to that TikTok in about as long as I've uploaded on YouTube. So I think I'm kind of nuked at the moment, because I tried to put my announcement video up like 3 different times and they just will not distribute it at all. And I don't know if it's because they hate me or if it's because I mentioned my website in said video. I don't know, but yeah, if you want to give me a follow over there, that'll be cool too. I'll leave all that stuff linked in the description box below. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening to me ramble today. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Until the next time, happy making.